that.
Off balance, falling to his right.
There's no way that ball went in.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
Yes, it does, and the Warriors fall at home to the Chicago Bulls just one night after dominating one of the better teams in the NBA. The Warriors can't hold serve, and they drop a disappointing one inside of Chase Center. They fall to the Chicago Bulls' final score, 123-119. Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you as we try to sort through this disappointment, because last night felt like they turned a corner. It felt like, all right, you got the full squad back, everybody available, some adjustments to rotations. Trace Jackson-Davis playing in front of both Kevon Looney and Dario Saric. Saric did not play except in garbage time. Saric did not play at all tonight. Neither did Kevon Looney. By the way, breaking Kevon Looney's historic consecutive games played streak. We can talk more about that later. You control Giannis. You make Damian Lillard a volume shooter. Stephen Curry hit a number of threes. You got a great performance from all of your youngsters last night. And then you follow it up with a clunker at home against the Bulls. Not a bad team by any stretch, but one who, if you have legitimate aspirations of making a postseason run, and the Warriors have those aspirations, you have those aspirations as the Warriors do, you got to win this game. No excuses. No excuses. 123-119 was the final score. Now the Warriors have more to worry about than just what this loss means, because Stephen Curry went down with an injury late in this game. Stephen Curry left the game with 3 minutes and 51 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Warriors were up by 1 point on offense. He was trying to stop. He landed and his right foot rolled. His right ankle rolled. Not a completely sideways roll sometimes. Those are more prototypical rolls. But he almost rolled it diagonally. There was a little bit of a vertical element to that roll of his right ankle. It did not look good. He kind of hobbled back down the court, tried to play defense for a minute. The Warriors took a foul, and Steph Curry checked out. He did not play over the final 3:51. Draymond Green also fouled out with a minute left in a tie game, and the Warriors ultimately lose 123-119, and all the good vibes from last night vanished. They vanished for the Warriors, and if you are the Golden State Warriors, if you're Joe Lacob, if you're Steve Kerr, if you're Steph Curry, if you're anyone on this roster, if you're a Warrior fan, you got your fingers crossed, and you're holding your breath about Steph Curry and his right ankle. Because if you know the history of Stephen Curry, you know that early in his career, his ankles were not only not kind to him, they were actively working against him over and over and over and over again. Now, his ankles haven't really been a major issue for him in, a long time now, like almost a decade now. But every time he rolls an ankle, you hold your breath and you think back to what it was like when these ankle injuries reared its head over and over and over for Stephen Curry. You hope that this isn't a serious one. The roll did not look good, and we do not have an update from the Warriors. I would imagine we don't get anything from the Warriors tonight. Now, maybe there is a report that comes out, but I would imagine we're going to get an update from the Warriors tomorrow at some point. And, of course, I'd keep it here on 95.7 The Game all day tomorrow for that update. The second that it happens, if it does happen, we'll have it for you on 95.7 The Game, so stay locked. But the Warriors worried about more than just this loss and the other movement in the standings around them. It was not a very good day in the Western standings for the Warriors. You lose, the Warriors do. The Mavericks beat the Heat, the Suns beat the Raptors, and the Kings beat the Spurs. That's a triple whammy for the Warriors, and on top of that, you've got the potential Stephen Curry right ankle injury. That did not look great. He managed to put his weight on it, but how many times do you see Steph deal with something like that? He fights through it. He stays in the game. Warriors were up by 1 point with 3:51 left, and he had to come out. That's not a good sign for the Golden State Warriors. And I'm not going to speculate on the severity of the injury. All I'm going to say is When it's not that bad, generally Steph fights through it and stays in the game. It's rare that an injury takes him out of games. At least it's rare over the last 8, 9, 10 years for that to happen. So fingers crossed, and we're holding our breath about Steph Curry's right ankle. But he left the game, did not return. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's not the reason the Warriors lost. It certainly would have helped if he was out there. But they had an opportunity. Brandon Pajemski missed a wide-open layup that would have tied the game for the Warriors. Then they have to play the foul game, and they hit a three. But Quinones, playing his only 2 seconds of the game, misses a half-court heave, and the game's over. Draymond Green fouled out. But the Warriors lost this game earlier, right? I mean, you can point to the Steph injury, and again, maybe they survive all of their issues earlier in the game. If Stephen Curry does not get hurt and he stays and he plays the final 4 minutes of this game. But the Warriors lost this game early. Remember, way back in the beginning, they were up 31-18. They had a 13-point lead. Chicago then immediately put together an 11-0 run. The Warriors had a lead in the third quarter as well, and then the Bulls put together a great stretch in the third quarter. The Warriors led by 5 with 6.5 to go in the third. The Bulls closed the quarter over the final 6.5 on a 27-12 run. It was a layup line at times defensively, and then Chicago got hot from downtown, and then DeMar DeRozan, one of the best closers this league has seen over the last decade, iced the game. He beat Jonathan Kuminga a number of times, not just driving past him. He didn't necessarily beat Kuminga that way. He beat Kuminga with his brain. He pump faked a couple of times, got Kuminga in the air. How many times was DeMar DeRozan fouled shooting a jumper? It happened time and time again. It was one of the bigger moments at the end of the first quarter, a 4-point play. At the very end of the first quarter, DeRozan in the corner, pump fakes, gets fouled on the three, hits the shot, hits the free throw, end of the quarter. A little bit of a run there for the Bulls. DeMar DeRozan was great in this game. 33 points, 8 rebounds. He got to the free throw line 11 times. He made 10 of them. He got to the line at will at times. And then Nikola Vucevic, his size was too much for the Warriors to handle. He had 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists, 14 of 23 from the field. The Warriors could not get their three-pointers to fall. It was another volume night from the field for Steph Curry, even before he went out with injury. He made just 5 of his 18 shots, was 3 of 12 from downtown, 15 points for Stephen Curry. Klay Thompson, he led the team with 25 points, but even him wasn't terribly efficient, 9 for 21, 5 of 12. Now, he did kind of have to hoist there at the end without Stephen Curry over the final 4 minutes. But you did not have a ton of efficient scoring from the Warriors in this game. But still, I think I point to the defense as the side of the ball to blame in this one. The Warriors could not get a stop during that run at the end of the third quarter. And then the Bulls just outsmarted the Warriors a number of times down the stretch in the fourth. And I say the Bulls, mostly I mean DeMar DeRozan. But the Bulls as a whole just outsmarted the Warriors on the Chicago offensive end and the Warriors' defensive end. Shot selection was not good either for the Warriors. The threes were not falling. They kept hoisting them. The Warriors put up 42 threes in this game, made 11 of them. You shoot about 26% from downtown in this game. The Bulls shot 6 fewer threes, and they made 5 more of them. They shot over 44% from downtown. Kobe White was really good. He's developing into a hell of a basketball player. After averaging, I think, less than 10 points, averaging in single-digit points last year, he's averaging damn near 20 points this year. In fact, right under 20. 19.7 points this year for Kobe White. He's a hell of a basketball player. He made the Warriors hurt from downtown in this game. A lot of reason to be upset, to be frustrated, and a lot of blame to go around for this Warrior loss today. And it only feels that much more disappointing and frustrating because of what happened last night. You saw what this Warrior team could be, right? You saw what they could be. I mean, they just absolutely dominated one of the better teams in the NBA. 125-90 against the Bucks. You ran Milwaukee out of the building. out of the building, and you follow it up on a back-to-back. I get it, but guess what? Chicago's on a back-to-back. They were in Salt Lake City last night. They had to fly out here to San Francisco while the Warriors were probably at home with their families or sleeping in their own beds. And you lose this game 123-19 to the Chicago Bulls. Again, not a terrible basketball team. They're right in the thick of the postseason picture at the bottom of the Eastern Conference around the play-in area. But if you're a Warriors team that has legitimate aspirations of making noise in the playoffs, you cannot lose this game at home. You just can't. You're now 16-13. The Warriors struggle at home, believe it or not. I said 16-13. They're actually 17-16 at home this year. You can't do that if you're the Warriors. You cannot lose this game. And again, the reason it feels that much more frustrating is because you saw what the Warriors' potential peak is. But like we've learned time and time again this season, they're inconsistent. And that inconsistency reared its ugly head once again for the Warriors. All right, that's Warriors wrap up by 95-7 the game. Mark Randy with you as we try to make sense of this Warriors loss, 123-119. Before I go any further, I did want to hear from Steve Kerr early. He addresses Steph Curry's injury early here, and just to spoil it, there really is no update from Steve Kerr. But let's hear from Steve Kerr, hear him talk about Steph Curry, hear him talk about the issues from tonight, and then we'll come back, react. We'll get into your phone calls. I want to hear from you guys. Line them up now, 888-957-9570. Coming to you guys right after we hear from Steve Kerr. We got a lot to get through, after this Warriors loss again, 123-119 to the Chicago Bulls. Frustrating effort for the Warriors. And there was a lot to be excited about. If they could have pulled this off, we'll get more into that on the other side, because they were led in a fourth quarter comeback, trailing by 10 going into the fourth. They were led by their young guys. I mean, they were sparked time and time again by the young guys, but they just could not quite close the door and win this one. They lose another clutch game. The Warriors lead the NBA in clutch games played, and they're under 500 in those clutch games. All right, Steve Kerr addressing the media postgame. First question about Steph Curry's rolled right ankle, suffered with about 3:50 to go in the fourth quarter. The Warriors ultimately lose 123-119. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr.
On Steph's ankle?
I don't know yet. Yeah, he's got his foot in a bucket of ice right now. I haven't talked to the training staff yet.
What part of, I guess, the last couple minutes is kind of most regretful for you? We give them credit. I mean, DeMar made, the end one. I thought that was the key shot in the closing few minutes. So we've got to tighten up defensively and execute better. But he made the shot, and give him credit. Our guys executed, offensively pretty well down the stretch. Made some big shots. The key to the game for me was, kind of late third. They went on that run. They made a ton of threes, and for the game they made 16 threes to our 11. And these days in the NBA, it's tough to win when you make 5 fewer threes than your opponent. You called the DeRozan shot kind of like the key shot of the game. Yeah. It was on a pump fake and one, right, which obviously he's known for. How difficult is it for a guy like Omega, even knowing that the pump fake might be coming? Yeah, I mean, DeMar is one of the great closers in the game. He has been for 10 years. So, it's a great experience for all of our young guys. JK and BP were in the pick and roll exchange, so it's good for them to feel this. Moses too, to feel these big situations. And like I said, I've got no problem with our effort, execution. We just got outplayed. Chicago was great. They've been playing well. Watching them on tape coming in to this game, I was pretty worried just because you could see the force that they were playing with and the confidence, and they came in and earned it.
Steve, your defense has been a big part of this surge you guys have had these last few weeks, but second and third quarters, they shot 60%, scored 74 points. Did you see what Could you tell what went wrong? What fell short there?
Energy. We just didn't feel like we were pressuring the ball, rotating quickly. It just felt like we never impacted them. They kind of got into their stuff. We had occasional good possessions, but never felt like we had a stretch in the game where we kind of locked them down for a few minutes where we could make a run. So, they scored 125, shot 53%, 16 threes. They deserve to win.
Steve Kerr post-game addressing the Warriors' loss. I was saying 123-119 earlier. The final score ended up being 125-122. Chris Paul would hit a three, then DeMar DeRozan made two more free throws, and then the Lester Quinones half-court heave at the buzzer fell short. 125-122 was the final score there, so my apologies. Loss is the loss, though, for the Golden State Warriors, and it's a frustrating one. If you missed Steve Kerr there at the very beginning, he had no update on Steph Curry's ankle, just saying that when he got back into the locker room, Curry's ankle was in a bucket of ice in the locker room after the game, and kind of reading the tea leaves, it does not seem like it's great, because you can think, Steph Curry gets beat up, bruised, battered often. He is... We talk so much about how he gets officiated, and so many Warrior fans at times are frustrated by the lack of consistency in how he is officiated, and generally feel, and for the most part, I understand this feeling, that he doesn't get the whistles he deserves. He is one of the greatest basketball players to have ever lived. Maybe he doesn't quite get the whistle he deserves. That's not my point. My point is he is in the lane. He's getting pushed around. He's getting body checked. He's getting hip checked. He's getting swatted. All of this stuff. He gets hurt. He gets beaten up. He gets bruised. He fights through it way more often than not. The fact that he had to check out of a game with 3 minutes and 51 seconds left, and the Warriors down by 1, in a game that's not a must-win, it's not a playoff game, it's not a lose and your season's over, it's not any of this. It's not a win and you go to the playoffs. Not that. We know that this game is not that important. But considering where the Warriors are at right now, fighting for their postseason lives, trying to improve their record to get, higher in the Western Conference standings, to maybe increase your odds of getting out of the first round, maybe avoiding the play-in altogether, all of that. It says a lot that Steph Curry had to check himself out of this game. Again, I don't want to speculate on how long the injury is. It does not look great. That would just be my opinion. And Anthony Slater, our Warriors insider who covers the Warriors as good as anybody for The Athletic in the post-game media sessions, he was there. He's the one that asked Steve Kerr the question about Stephen Curry to begin. Klay Thompson speaking post-game. We might be able to get some of this sound here before the night is over on Warriors Wrap-Up. He posted a chunk of Klay Thompson's post-game presser, and Anthony Slater just said, quote, Klay Thompson sounds like he is preparing for Steph Curry to miss some time after that ankle sprain. Again, nothing official, but the vibe coming out of the Warriors locker room does not seem like it's just going to be not a big deal for Steph Curry. So we will see. That's a big deal. That is a huge deal for the Warriors. All right, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call. It's also the Comcast Business text line. I'm keeping an eye on the text line, 925, the 510. Also chiming in. Thanks all you guys. Also, the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. See all you guys chatting up on YouTube, youtube.com/957 the game. Let's go out to the phone lines, though, as the Warriors fall to the Bulls 125-122. Chicago earns a win inside of Chase Center, and the Warriors continue to struggle to defend their home floor. It has really been a troubling season for the Warriors inside of Chase Center. All right, first up on the phone lines, 888-957-9570 is Connor in Dublin. Connor, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? Well, I'm not doing that good. With this Warriors loss, it's a real bummer. But how are you?
Yeah, considering I'm hanging in there. I'm just a little worried about the Steph injury, Connor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm really worried about that one. with such a key component to this Warriors roster, looking like he's going to be out for a couple of games or so maybe, but I'm not going to discuss it as you requested, because honestly, I don't really want to talk about it either, because it's just, I know it's something we can't avoid, but for the meantime, I guess until we get an update, I think we can just focus on what happened after this injury, and maybe even before, with Draymond fouling out, that definitely probably contributed somewhat to this loss. I feel like Draymond maybe should work on controlling getting those fouls out, and just it would really help if he could hopefully get that under control. But he's made a big improvement in his character, so I'm giving him that credit. But overall, really big bummer and a really big loss. Well, not super big, but not a good loss. It's never great to lose. But thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Connor. The final score, 125-122, Bulls over the Warriors. One thing that did impact this game, Connor's right, it is Draymond Green's sixth foul. Fouled out of this game with a minute left. In a tie game, Warriors had the ball, so it's a double whammy. A turnover, you don't get a shot up on that possession, and you lose Draymond Green. That was bad. The reason why that was Draymond Green's sixth foul, and it was a moving screen, and despite Draymond Green's protestation, Steve Kerr did not challenge it, and he should not have, because it was certainly a moving screen. That one's on Draymond. It was definitely a moving screen. And it happens. Happens all the time. Moving screens happen all the time in the NBA, but just an unfortunate time for it. The reason that it was Draymond Green's sixth foul was because once Steph Curry realized, or once the Warriors realized that Steph Curry could not stay in the game, Draymond Green purposely fouled the Bulls. That was his fifth foul with about 3:50 to go in the fourth quarter. Picked up his fifth foul, and then the next one, that moving screen, his sixth, and he's gone. So the Steph Curry injury hurt because it gave away a precious Draymond Green foul. And that foul also put the Bulls on the free throw line because they were already in the bonus. So not only do you lose Steph Curry, you get another foul onto Draymond Green, who then later fouls out with his next foul, and you gift 2 points to the Bulls. So a terrible bout of luck for the Warriors right there. But as we talked about earlier, the Warriors lost this game elsewhere. They lost this game a couple of times. It all started great. I mean, early in this game, you're thinking, all right, this feels like the team that just beat Milwaukee last night. Late in the first quarter, the Warriors were up by 13 points, 31-18. And you're thinking, okay, let's keep this rolling. And then a 7-0 Chicago run in the final minute of the first quarter, a 3-pointer, and then the 4-point play by DeMar DeRozan. Suddenly, your 13-point lead is down to just a 6-point lead going into the second quarter, and then Chicago scores 4 quick out of the second quarter break, and it's 11-0 run. Your 13-point lead is down to just 2. The Warriors would fight back, and the game kind of went back and forth for a while. The Warriors ultimately built a 5-point lead with 6.5 to go in the third quarter, and then the Bulls closed the quarter on a 27-12 run. Over about half of a quarter, the final half of the third quarter, the Bulls outscored the Warriors 27-12, 27 points in about 6.5 minutes. Considering all the positives we've been discussing when it relates to the Warriors' defense, man, the end of that third quarter was rough. You had a 5-point lead with 6.5 to go in the third, and you turned it into a 10-point deficit entering the fourth. A 10-point deficit entering the fourth after you were up by 5 just 6 minutes prior. It was a layup line. It was open 3 after open 3, and credit the Bulls. I mean, they made some tough shots, but it was not good defense for the Warriors, and it felt like the Warriors' defense from earlier in the season at times. 125 points for the Bulls. They did most of their damage in the middle 2 quarters. They scored 25 in the first quarter, 26 in the fourth, 38 in the second, and 36 in the third. You just can't have that if you're the Warriors. That porous a defense in consecutive quarters, it's the reason why the Warriors lost this game. And again, we can point to the Curry injury. We can point to the Draymond sixth foul and fouling out. The Warriors lost this game, in my opinion, on the defensive end earlier in this game. Podziemski's missed layup, that hurts. You let go of some possessions in the fourth quarter. The Warriors weren't terrible in terms of turning the ball over in this game, but it wasn't great either. But you just allowed way too much to the Chicago Bulls in the middle half of this basketball game. The Warriors only committed, 11 turnovers. 11 turnovers that you can commit to individual players. And as a team, only 11 turnovers in total. And Chicago scored 13 off of those turnovers. Chicago turned the ball over 14 times themselves. The Warriors won the turnover battle, and they turned those 14 turnovers into 22 points. The Warriors won the turnover battle. Let's see, they outscored Chicago 16-8 in the fast break. They got more points in the paint, 58-40. Their bench dominated Chicago's bench, 58-20. The difference in this game was the starters. The Bulls starters outscored the Warriors by a lot. 15 for Steph Curry, 19 for Jonathan Kuminga. He got to the line a lot, which was great to see. But 66 combined for DeRozan and Vucevic. Add in 20 more for Kobe White. And the discrepancy in the three-point line. The Bulls made 16 threes and the Warriors only made 11. And a number of those threes for the Bulls were open looks, and the Warriors maybe forced a few too many threes. Now, in today's NBA, when you do get outscored from the three-point line by 15 points, you're going to have to kind of dominate in a lot of other categories. And the Warriors, they were good in a lot of other categories, but not quite to the level that you need to be to overcome being outscored by 15 points from downtown. All right, Warriors Live continues on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. 888-957-9570. That's the number to call. The Warriors fall to the Bulls 125-122. A disappointing loss for the Warriors the night after arguably their best, most impressive win of the season, most encouraging win of the season. However you want to describe it, however you want to caption the win last night, I think accurate. You beat one of the best teams in the NBA and you ran them out of the building. And then you follow it up with a little bit of a clunker against the Chicago Bulls. You lose 125-122. All right, up next to your On Warriors wrap-up is Nick in San Jose. Nick, what's up? You're on Warriors wrap-up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for taking my call, Mark. I just got a few things I got to say. First thing is asking Draymond not to flirt with foul trouble, but also expecting him to be an undersized center is asking a lot. You can't have it both ways. So it's tough. You know, it's going to happen from time to time. Secondly, this is why we got Chris Paul. Let's see how he does. You know, hopefully we can tread some water. I'm assuming, I'm not a doctor, but I'm assuming Steph will be out for a couple of weeks. It'll be a week plus whatever Steve Kerr always likes to add some extra time, as he should. Hopefully it's 2 weeks or less, but, you know, fingers crossed. And last thing, do you know what Steve Kerr's biggest mistake tonight was? I bet you can't guess.
Give it to me, Nick. What was his biggest mistake?
Well, if you couldn't feel any worse, I believe Kevon Looney got a DNP tonight.
He did. His streak is over.
The streak is over. You couldn't put him in for a free throw rebound, something. I mean, come on. That's kind of a bummer. But anyways, I appreciate the call. Go Dubs.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yeah, so Kevon Looney did not play. He was available. He was suited up. So that ends his streak of 254 consecutive regular season games played, the 7th longest streak in Warriors franchise history. You add in postseason games, Looney has played in 289 consecutive games, the 5th longest streak in franchise history. And Looney's streak, which is no longer active, it was the 2nd longest active streak in the NBA. Mikal Bridges of the Nets, 455 consecutive games played. How about that from Bridges? He takes the cake. And Kevon Looney wasn't really on his tail to begin with, but now Bridges has much more room behind him in terms of active streaks. But yeah, a little bit sad to see that streak end. I think Looney understands, as Kerr, I'm sure, told him, I'm not going to put you in just for the sake of the streak. I'm going to put you in if I think we need you and you can help us win. And tonight, Steve Kerr decided that was not the case. Interestingly enough, the Warriors might have been able to use a little bit more size because part of what turned this game around, it was in the second quarter, that 11-0 run spanning the first and second, and it continued the rest of the second quarter when the Bulls put up 38 points, their highest scoring quarter of the game, and they had 36 more in the third. They scored a bunch of those in the final 6 minutes of the third quarter. Part of what led the Bulls back into this game was them on the glass. Andre Drummond, in 13 minutes, had 7 rebounds. 3 of them were offensive rebounds. Nikola Vucevic had 11 rebounds. 2 of them were offensive rebounds. 7 offensive rebounds as a team for the Chicago Bulls, and they turned those into, they turned those into only 5 points, but there were a couple of moments where those moments were in big moments. It led them to a 3-pointer off a Drummond offensive rebound. He would get a putback, or they'd be fouled, and it would turn into 2 free throws. Not suggesting that I think Kevon Looney should have necessarily been put into this game on short notice, but when, as I think our caller is talking about there, when you are playing small, and he was talking about this in relation to Draymond's foul trouble, when you're asking Draymond to defend bigger guys constantly, something like this is going to happen from time to time. And in addition to that, you are going to be undersized well more often than not. Now, to the Warriors' credit, they have been a very good rebounding team. In fact, one of the better rebounding teams in the NBA. And if there was a stat for like rebounds per, inch of your height, like rebound per your height as a team, your average height, the Warriors, I'm sure, would be the best in the NBA at that statistic. Considering their relative lack of size, they're an incredible rebounding team. But considering how small they already are, and now Steve Kerr is moving away from Saric and Looney, which I don't disagree with, by the way. I've been on these airwaves saying that was the way this was going for a number of weeks now. Specifically the Saric one, that was easy. The Looney one is a little more difficult to actually do because of your emotional connection to Kevon Looney. But when you're already small, even when you're playing those guys, now you go away from those guys, you are tiny. You're tiny. You're back up big and backing up a small 5 in Draymond Green, who's a small 4, by the way, in today's NBA. He's your 5. Your backup 5 is Trace Jackson Davis, who's a fantastic player considering his inexperience in the NBA. He's your backup 5, and Jonathan Kuminga, who's a small 4, is your starting 4. Who is your backup 4? Is your backup 4 GP2? This is a very, very, very small Warriors team, and amazingly, they've actually been good rebounding this season, and they out-rebounded the Bulls today, 48-40, but the lack of size I don't know if I'd say concerning, because they did out-rebound the Bulls today, but part of what led to that run was a grouping of offensive rebounds for Chicago in that second quarter that helped them get back into this ballgame. They were down 13 early, and Drummond had a positive impact. The Warriors still won the battle of the glass, battle on the boards, but they were small, and it also allowed the Bulls to get to the free throw line a lot in this game. And they got 17 points from the stripe, and it was DeMar DeRozan getting Jonathan Kuminga up in the air. I think 3 separate times Kuminga fouled him on jumpers, including a 3-point play in the final minute. That was a killer. And it wasn't quite the final nail in the coffin, but it was a big one for the Warriors in this one. They ultimately lose. Final score 125-122. The Bulls knock off the Warriors. It was almost as if the Warriors had a little bit of a lack of energy and effort in this game. And, if you're looking at it in a vacuum, I guess you can kind of understand it, because the Warriors are on a back-to-back, maybe one of the more emotional wins of the year last night. But, you can't have that excuse when your opponent is also on a back-to-back and you're playing at home. Your opponent was in Salt Lake City last night. They had to travel out here, and you were at home getting ready for this game. You were happy, you were content, you were excited, you were probably ready to get back out on the floor. When things are going good and you're winning and you're feeling good about yourselves and you got the momentum, you want to get back out on the floor ASAP. And the Bulls, they had a hard-fought win last night. They had to fight all the way to the final buzzer in Salt Lake City. They won 119-117. DeRozan played 38 minutes. Kobe White played 42 minutes. And they come right back, and they seem like the more fresh team, the more energetic team. They're obviously the younger team. They're the more athletic team for the most part. They're the quicker team. But the Warriors got out-hustled for the vast majority of this basketball game, and that was a little bit disappointing. All right, out to the phone lines we go, 888-957-9570. Up next is Jonathan. He was at the game inside of Chase Center tonight. Jonathan, what's up? You're on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, Evan. What a difference from last night. I didn't want to be the one to say that I called this, and I certainly didn't after what they did last night, but this was eerily familiar to Atlanta, Sacramento in January. They lose control of the game. They get it back in the fourth to make it interesting, and then late game execution it wasn't good, and it cost them. As you've been saying, the size definitely has been a factor all year, and I didn't even see the injury to Steph because I was so focused when the game was tight. So that's just when it rains, it pours. To hear that news, I hate to say this is goodbye for the season because this was not at all how I wanted to go out, but very, very disappointing, and I'm just hoping that they can stay in this race, keep themselves afloat while Steph's out, and then make a little bit of a run of it. But it's getting me not only all the more nervous for them, but also because I'm thinking, what if their playoff chances actually comes down to that Miami Heat game? Not what I want to experience at all. So, they needed this one tonight, coming off all the emotion of last night, and to not get it again. I heard Kendrick Perkins on First Take this morning, doubting them again, and I scoffed him off because I was so blown away by last night. Now I'm starting to think, what if he does have a point to what he's been saying all year? Because every time they give us hope, every time they up our expectations, something goes horribly wrong the next game. And I don't know. They've been so lackadaisical up and down all year, inconsistent, that I'm worried about their chances. So I hate to say I won't be back till October and November, December at the latest, but that's where we are. And looking forward to baseball, but I'll be watching in the background, and I'll be back in the fall or the winter, but not the way I wanted to end the season at all. And this was right up there with the Sacramento game and with the Nuggets game.
Yeah, Jonathan, appreciate the call. Season's far from over. And I'm going to tell you, Jonathan, this team, they're going to be in postseason basketball. And I say that to include the play-in. I mean, there are 10 teams in the Western Conference that have distanced themselves. And let's say even the worst with Steph Curry's injury, the Warriors would have to absolutely plummet. And they do have a number of winnable games coming up, including their next two. You got the Spurs at home, the Spurs on the road, and it seems unlikely that Victor Wembanyama is going to play on Saturday at Chase Center against the Warriors. He did not play tonight in Sacramento. By the way, the Spurs, though, almost and maybe should have beaten the Kings in Sacramento tonight. We can get to more on that later. The Warriors will be in the play-in tournament at the very worst. I feel very confident saying that. Even if it is the 10. You're ahead of the Utah Jazz by 5.5 games. The Utah Jazz are the 11th team, the first team out of the play-in tournament. So you will get some sort of extracurricular basketball this year, more than just the regular season. But it's just a question of how much and if it's going to come in the play-in and that's it, or if you're going to get to a postseason series. I think what Jonathan is getting to in terms of the inconsistency, and that's just kind of what you get with fandom, right? Like, it's happened so many times this year. They earn a nice win, they put together a little bit of a streak, and you're like, all right, maybe they've turned the corner. And then they beat the Boston Celtics, right, earlier in the year at home. I think they were down by like 18 points in that game, and they come back and win in overtime. And you're thinking, oh, this is the game where they finally turned the corner. This is where they put it together, right? And then all the issues, Draymond's suspension, Chris Paul's injury, and Klay Thompson's struggles, and the disappointment and all of that. All right. Then they get over it. Draymond comes back, and suddenly the defense starts playing not necessarily elite, but really good once again. And this is the streak that we're currently on. But what was the argument against them during this streak? Well, okay, who have they really beaten? Yeah, okay, they beat the Pacers. They beat the Suns, but they barely eked that one out. They needed Steph to be, God mode Steph to earn that win. And he did it, but they got the win. That was at home. Then they go to the Celtics and they lose by 52 points. Oh, this team only beats the bad teams, right? And you're down after that loss to the Celtics thinking they can't compete. Then they return home and they absolutely blow the doors off of the Milwaukee Bucks. And after we were just so down in the dumps thinking that this team might not be able to compete against the big dogs, they run the Bucks. They run Giannis and Dame out of the building. And you're like, oh my God, this team has arrived. Again, we're feeling that way. And then they follow it up with this clunker. They fall to the Bulls 125-122. And if nothing else, the Warriors are just proving to you that they are consistently inconsistent. Now, there were some unique circumstances for this game at the end with the Steph Curry injury and Draymond Green fouling out. But we've been down this road before for the Warriors. And one thing that I would just try to reason with you about is, and I get this is the nature of fandom, and I'm this way as well, despite my efforts to try to take a step back and think about this a little bit more analytically. It's difficult to put your fandom to the side. Let's not get too high or too low after any individual game. The Warriors dominated the Bucks, yeah, and that's a great, great victory. But as we've learned countless times this year, including tonight, we've learned this lesson the hard way, time and time and time again. It doesn't really mean much if they follow it up with a game like this, and they followed it up with a game like this. It's just who this Warriors team is right now. Now, there's still time to, and look at me, I'm already trying to rationalize it. There is time for them to prove to us that this was the loss. This was the loss that was maybe the exception. The previous 18 games were the rule. This was the exception. They will continue proving that rule with their next, 18 games. What are there, 20 games left now for the Warriors? Maybe they will continue to prove that, and we'll look back at this as a fluke, as opposed to, the pattern that has continued all season long. But up to this point, this has been the Warriors' pattern for a lot of the season. You're in a win. Suddenly you feel some of the vibes and the confidence and the good energy come back. And you're thinking, okay, look out. Look out, Mavericks. Look out, Kings. Look out, Suns. The Warriors are coming. Hey, T-Wolves. Hey, Thunder. Hey, Nuggets. Clippers. You don't want to play us, right? We're coming for that 6th seed. Hey, Pelicans, watch out. We might get the 5 if things break right for us. That was the talk today. And then after tonight's game, and I'm sure it'll be the conversation tomorrow all over, including here on 95.7 The Game, because it's the nature, it's how things go when you're a fan of a team. Now the conversation is going to be, well, the sky is falling. Even with Steph, they were struggling to win this game, and now you're without Steph. This season might be over. And I get it. Again, it's natural to feel that way. But we have learned this lesson time and time again from the Warriors. And despite learning this lesson time and time again, the Warriors are still in a pretty decent spot to get out of the play-in. Now, they have to not have losses like this moving forward, but it's not like all is lost after one game. I'm trying to be a little bit positive here. It's difficult because you keep putting your heart on the line with this team and they let you down like they let you down tonight. It's frustrating. And now you got the extra emotional weight and baggage of a potential Steph Curry injury, which we don't have any official update on. But if I was guessing, he's missing a handful of games. I would be absolutely shocked if he plays on Saturday. I would be surprised if he played when the Warriors take on the Spurs again in San Antonio. They play at home on Saturday, then they travel to San Antonio for a home-and-home of sorts against the Spurs. I'd be surprised if we see Steph in either of those. I don't want to speculate on days versus weeks, but I think he's going to miss at least a handful of games, and we'll see. I would imagine we get an update from the Warriors or a report about it tomorrow. But it looks like more than just your run-of-the-mill, I'll be out a day. I'll be out a game. And this is the Spurs. Maybe the Warriors would hold them out anyway because you'd hope you can win against the Spurs, one of the worst teams record-wise in the league. You'd hope you can beat them even without Steph. But this seems to be a little bit more than that. I mean, it's rare for an injury to take Steph out of a one-point ball game in the final 4 minutes of regulation. That's rare. And he had to come out nearly immediately. And as Steve Kerr said, if you missed it, he had his foot in a bucket of ice in the locker room postgame. All right, we got to hit a break here in a few minutes. But first, Jane in Walnut Creek. Jane wants to react to this Warriors loss. They fall to the Bulls 125-122. Jane, what's up? You're on 95.7 The Game with Mark Randy. How you doing, Jane?
Well, I'm a little disappointed to hear some of the things that you're saying because when the last person that called in saying that they're lackadaisical and that they were low energy. I mean, I don't know. Were we watching the same game? This game was neck and neck, even though the Bulls were shooting threes like crazy. So I'm just not sure, when you say, oh, this kind of loss, I mean, it was a really tight game. So I don't know, it just seemed really negative to me. It kind of irritated me, to be honest with you, because I just didn't see it that way. They fought hard. I don't see the lackadaisical attitude from these players that you guys are talking about. I don't get it.
Did you think the Warriors played as hard as the Bulls tonight, Jane? You think that they played as hard as the Bulls tonight?
They played hard. I think they played really hard. They were trading baskets for a while there. I mean, it was tied for a long time. Up one, down one, up one. I mean, it wasn't a blowout. They didn't blow us out. So I don't know. I'm just wondering if we watched the same game. I don't know.
I think I'd ask the same thing to you, Jane. I mean, I don't know what game you were watching. If the standard for the Warriors now is, well, the Bulls didn't blow us out at home, oh, then my God, we've got issues. If that's the standard, at least we didn't get blown out. All right, pack up this season. We're done for. This is all over. And I appreciate the call, Jane. Really, I do. And I really appreciate you trying to see things in a positive light. But the standard for this Warriors team with 3 Hall of Famers on the roster, the standard cannot be at least we didn't get blown out. The Bulls came in here and they took this game. They earned this game. They played harder, better, faster, quicker, smarter than the Warriors for the vast majority of this one. They deserve the win. The Warriors could have played much better. And in my opinion, they could have played with more effort, with more energy, and with more enthusiasm. Now, this is an old team. This is a veteran team, back-to-back, tired legs. I get it. Like, you got Kobe White out there running 100 miles an hour for 40 minutes last night, doing it again tonight. Like, the Warriors don't have a number of guys that can do that. Now, Kuminga's young, Moody's young. I get it. But the heavy lifting is being done by Steph Curry and Draymond Green on a nightly basis. And Klay Thompson was your best offensive player tonight. Those are 3 guys in their mid-30s. Steph is turning 36 in a week. I get all of that, but the standard cannot be, well, it was neck and neck with the Bulls at Chase Center. At least we didn't get blown out. No. After you do that to the Bucks last night, I could not disagree more. The Bucks' energy on the offensive glass in the second quarter turned this game around, and then the Warriors poor defensively in the second and the third quarter. A layup line at times. Kobe White hitting threes. The Warriors falling for DeMar DeRozan's pump fakes. And look, this isn't the end of the world. I'm not going to sit here like an earlier caller and say that the season's over because they lost at home to the Bulls. That would be foolish. That would be silly. But we also can't sit here and pretend like this was nothing. Because they've had a game like this almost like every week of the season. Which I guess makes me feel like, why am I so surprised? But it really felt like last night was something real and something new and something special. But then they pull this out of the hat, and it's disappointing and it's frustrating. I don't know. All right, we got a couple of callers that just called in. We're going to get to you guys on the other side. Michael and Judy, appreciate you guys calling in. We'll get to you in just a minute. We got to take a quick break here on Warriors Wrap-Up. It's Mark Randy with you on 95.7 The Game. The Bulls knock off the Warriors 125-122. More coming up on the other side as Warriors Wrap-Up continues here on 95.7 The Game.
Is switching your wireless service to Total by Verizon easy?
Totalmente.
And you get unlimited 5G data, $25 a line for 4 lines on the unlimited plan, at an amazing price with no contracts. Should you switch to Total by Verizon?
Jackson Davis finds Moody, who scores, and the Warriors lead 108-107. How about that?
Now back to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Mark Randy with you as the Warriors fall to the Bulls 125-122. The Warriors can't defend their home court after picking up one of their best, if not their best, win of the season last night, blowing out the Milwaukee Bucks, and now they fall to the Chicago Bulls. Disappointment for sure for the Warriors and all Warrior fans. That highlight you just heard, courtesy of Tim Roy. Welcome back, Tim. Great to have him back here on 95.7 The Game, calling Warrior games. One of the best in the league. One of the best radio broadcasters out there. That was one of the more fun moments and more fun stretches of this basketball game. The Warriors run in the fourth quarter, and considering how the game ended, I think it's easy to forget that this was a 10-point deficit going into the fourth. The Warriors' run was almost all young guys. I mean, you just look at the play-by-play of this game from about the 7-minute mark on in the fourth quarter. It was like all young guys. Kuminga made a free throw. You had after the Kuminga free throw, Moses Moody made 2 free throws. And they came off of 2 Moses Moody offensive rebounds. And then Moses Moody had a steal, led to a Moses Moody fast break bucket. Jonathan Kuminga, a steal, led to a Clay mid-range shot, but off of the Jonathan Kuminga steal. And then guess what happened? You had a Moses Moody rebound off of a stop, Trace Jackson Davis, a dunk. And then what happened? Moses Moody, a 2-point shot. This was the great Klay Thompson steal, outlet pass to Trace Jackson Davis. Trace Jackson Davis leading the break in transition, kind of hops off of 1 foot and makes a pinpoint pass to a cutting Moses Moody for the lay-in. This was a run for the Warriors where you fell behind because of, we could be honest here, because of the veterans at times in this game. And then it was the youngsters that brought you back in the fourth quarter, bucket after bucket, steal after steal, deflection, stop, pass, assist, lay-in, dunk, mid-range. Like, it was the young guys over and over and over again. And at that point, I don't know how you guys were feeling. I was thinking, okay, young guns, bring them back in this game. Then Steph Curry check back in, he'll ice this game, and the Warriors will walk out of here winners, and all will be right in the world. And then everything went downhill from there, and we know how it ended. There was an unfortunate Pajemski missed layup in the final moments of this game that could have really helped the Warriors win this one. We know about Steph's injury, rolled an ankle with about 4 minutes left, and based on the tone from the Warriors, does not feel great. We are going to hear from Klay Thompson on that in just a minute. And then you had Draymond Green fouling out. You had DeMar DeRozan tricking Kuminga into a number of and ones on jumpers. And you just got a savvy veteran in DeRozan, another one in Vucevic, just being smarter on offense than the Warriors on defense. And you lose this game. But there was a lot to be happy about with how the young guys helped the Warriors get back in the game. They erased a 10-point deficit like that in a blink of an eye because of the young guys on both ends of the floor. So if you are looking for a silver lining, I think that is one of them if you are the Warriors. And speaking of silver lining, let's go back out to the phone lines. 888-957-9570. Michael in Oakland wants to talk about silver linings as well. We need a little bit of positivity here after this Warriors loss. Give it to me, Michael. What's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up by 95.7 The Game.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. No, that was just the exact place where I was going with that. Is just down the stretch, it's with the loss of Draymond Green and with Steph Curry being out. I mean, these guys went out there and played defense. You have to be able to be in those situations and make mistakes, be able to be in those situations and thrive. So I don't think Podziemski's going to miss another layup in that situation. And I'm sure Kuminga learned to keep his feet on the floor as you move forward. But, I mean, to have so young a team, last year Kuminga didn't even crack the floor, I think, when we got to the playoffs. So to have so young a team, to be in this position, to be able to do that, be able to make the mistakes that they made tonight, I think it's going to catapult them a long way as they go forward on this playoff run. And I think it'll be something that if you look back at, if they go deep into the playoffs or even, obviously play in, this game will be one that they actually will look back at and be like, yeah, they learned a lot in this loss.
Yeah, Michael, appreciate the call. I think you make a good point. I mean, Steve Kerr made the same exact point post-game. We heard that earlier. This is an opportunity for those young guys to just keep learning. Now, you don't necessarily want to be in a position where young guys learning cost you wins. And again, we just talked about how good those guys were during that fourth quarter run. When they helped erase that 10-point deficit. But there's no why the Podziemski missed layup, the Kuminga fouls on jumper attempts by DeRozan. I mean, those were debilitating for the Warriors. If one of those things don't happen, if two of those things don't happen, you probably win this basketball game. So you hope that the guys learn from it. And it seems to me like, I think the caller's right. I don't think Podziemski will ever miss a layup like that again. He just seems to be that kind of guy. We've seen Kuminga grow tremendously already this year. Guarantee there's more growth in store from him, and I would not be shocked if next time he faces DeMar DeRozan or a player like that who relies on those kind of pump fakes and plays a lot, I would not be surprised if he doesn't fall for that as much. Or again, it's going to happen at some point, but as much. I don't think that it's going to happen in a way like it did in this one. So you do hope that you're not in a situation where you're in a fight for the playoffs and you got to deal with a little bit of growing pains and it costs you a loss. But that is also the reality of the Warriors. I mean, Steve Kerr going to these guys more often lately is a result of the other options not being good enough, right? And the reality of going to these options is sometimes you're going to have moments like that. And you can live with it. It's the reality. You know that it's coming at some point. Your rookies, your young guys are not going to be perfect. If that's what you're assuming, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Like this is expected at some point. You could be disappointed or frustrated that it did happen and when it happened, but this sort of thing is expected. Now you just hope they learn from it and it doesn't happen again. It doesn't cost you a win again. All right, back out to the phone lines we go here on Warriors Wrap-Up. We're going to wrap things up as well here in just a minute. But up first is Judy in Oakland. Judy was inside of Chase Center tonight and wants to talk about the game. Judy, what's up? You're on with Mark Randy on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. So I just kind of wanted to comment on, there was a caller before you went on break, and she was saying that she didn't agree that there was lackluster. And, there were times of the game, though, where you could tell they were frustrated. I don't know if it was because of the whistle. The whistle was in the way of the game having a good flow. DeRozan was shooting. Nobody was putting a body on him. I don't know what was going on with that. But there were times in the game where they, heads were down. Body language was not cool. It was not a good look. And that ended up building up. And then, like you said, the young guys came in and kind of took over. But, I was watching, we were sitting kind of right to the right of the Warrior bench. And you could see, Chris Paul was trying to, talk everybody up and, come on, let's get it together, kind of, trying to pump everybody up. But you could see that they were feeling some type of way. It was very clear. And, as the young guys came in and did their thing, and Moses kind of came in and, brought that energy and that defense, and, he was working. It just wasn't enough because I think they had already gotten their heads about what they were feeling some type of way about. And it did. You can see that they were not playing that spunk, bouncy ball that they were playing last night. They just weren't.
Yeah, I agree with you, Judy, and I like your firsthand account of it. You were there at the game. You were close to the Warriors bench. You had a read on that. I'm glad you brought up Chris Paul. He seems to be one of the guys who consistently does have that positive energy. And now this is Chris Paul's opportunity to help the Warriors out big time. I mean, he's always going to have a role when he's healthy, but now he's presumably going to start. I think the starting lineup question is going to be really interesting. We'll get to that in a second. First of all, I did want to hear from Klay Thompson. I told you guys earlier that there was a tweet from Anthony Slater of The Athletic who said that based on Klay's answer, it seems like the Warriors might be expecting Steph to miss at least a handful of games. I have not heard this yet. I'm just going to play it, and we'll all react together. But here is Klay Thompson postgame on Stephen Curry's ankle injury.
He had his ankle wrap on, and he was icing his ankle, but I know we're going to miss him if he does have time off. We've been in this position before where he has had time off, and we just got to do it collectively. And I know he'll be ready to go when he does come back, whenever that is. We just want to wish him a speedy recovery and to take his time.
There's Klay post-game saying we're going to miss him, a little bit of a pause, if he does miss games or if he does sit out or whatever the exact word was. We're going to miss him. That doesn't really mean that much to me. That's just Klay talking about the possibility of the injury. Now, again, I would be shocked if Steph plays on Saturday. That seems almost impossible considering how he left this game tonight. I don't want to speculate on length. Seems like at least a handful of games to me. Who knows beyond that? Stay tuned for an update tomorrow, I would imagine. Draymond Green said in the locker room, we don't have this sound, but he said in the locker room that he'll probably, I would imagine, Draymond said that he's going to get an MRI. That's Steph Curry on his right ankle. We'll see. And once the results of the MRI get released by the Warriors or get reported on elsewhere, we'll keep you updated tomorrow on 95.7 The Game. But now is an opportunity for Chris Paul to go into the starting lineup and to help lead the Warriors through a moment like this when every game is incredibly important. And who starts elsewhere for the Warriors? Do you just put Chris Paul in the lineup and keep everything else the same? Podziemski along with Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond Green? I'm just thinking here altogether, reacting to this conversation that we're having, and I don't know. I mean, the Klay Thompson, Chris Paul duo has been working pretty decently off the bench. Does Steve Kerr have any thought to start both Chris Paul and Klay Thompson? I don't know. It's a thought. We'll see. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Warriors make this all work. Because there's a number of options. You could go back to Moses Moody. You could start Chris Paul and Moses Moody. You could stick with Podziemski. You could throw Klay Thompson back in there. That would feel a little bit weird because Klay, I feel like, has gotten finally used to that off-the-bench role, and he almost seems happy and excited about it on a night-to-night basis. Part of that might be playing with Chris Paul, but now Steve Kerr has another big decision. Is it just as simple as Chris Paul in for Steph, no other changes, or is there another move that makes the Chris Paul lineup a little bit better, and can that set up the second unit for better success? I don't know. We'll find out. Certainly Chris Paul is going to start, but are there any other changes for the Warriors? I'm not so sure. All right. Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you, putting the finishing touches on this one as the Warriors fall to the Bulls, 125-122. We got to get to our hardest worker of the game, which is brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, who works hard to serve the community. Are you looking for a career in law enforcement? Learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. Hardest worker of the game tonight. I'm tempted to go with a Bull. DeRozan and Vucevic were really, really good in this game. but I'm going to hand it to Klay Thompson tonight. Klay Thompson, 25 points. He was the Warriors' leading scorer. 5 made threes, had to chuck a few up there down the stretch. 5 of 12 from downtown. Klay hit a big 3 right after Steph Curry went out with the injury. He hit that 3 from the top of the key off of a pin-down screen, made it. Chase Center erupted. That felt like, all right, Warriors might still find a way to win this without without Steph Curry. Draymond Green fouls out as well. Klay was the Warriors' most consistent offensive weapon in this game, 25 points to lead the way for the Dubs. As a result, he is our hardest worker of the game. Again, brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. Okay, so the Warriors fall 125 to 122. The Warriors blew a 13-point lead that they had in the first quarter. They fought back from down 10 entering the fourth. They came all the way back and took the lead. Then Steph Curry went down. Draymond Green fouled out, and ultimately the Warriors lose by 3, 125 to 122. Another note that one of our callers pointed to, Kevon Looney's consecutive game streak has ended. He had played in 254 consecutive regular season games. That streak is now over. If you include playoffs, he had played in 289 consecutive games for the Warriors. Again, that streak is over. He had the second longest active streak in the NBA. Only Mikal Bridges of the Nets had more. He still stands alone. His streak is still active, 455 consecutive games played for Mikal Bridges. So unfortunate that Looney's streak is over, but maybe he'll start a new one coming up on Saturday when the San Antonio Bulls are in town. Before we get to what's ahead for the Warriors, a quick look at the scoreboard as we wrap things up on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. Of course, all games this hour are final across the NBA. In the Western Conference, games of note, the Mavericks beat the Heat by 6, 114 to 108. So the Warriors lose a game to the Mavericks with today's results. Also, the Suns beat the Raptors 120 to 113. So the Warriors lose a game there. And the Kings, they escape the San Antonio Spurs 131 to 129. The Kings were down big time in this game, actually, in the first half. But they come back and they win by 2 against the Victor Wembanyama-less San Antonio Spurs, and it seems unlikely that Wembanyama plays on Saturday when the Spurs are in town against the Warriors. So the Warriors lose ground to the Kings, to the Suns, and to the Mavericks tonight. Elsewhere, the Nuggets beat the Celtics. What a matchup in Denver, and the Nuggets earned the win over the Boston Celtics. That game does not really have any bearing on the Golden State Warriors, but one of the more exciting matchups of the NBA season, Nuggets and Celtics. So as we look at the updated Western Conference standings now, the Warriors are still in 9th, percentage points ahead of the Lakers for 10th, but they're now a game and a half behind the Mavericks for 8th. They're 3 games behind the Kings for 7th, 3.5 behind the Suns for 6th, and 4 games behind the Pelicans for 5th. So today was not disaster, but not great. The 3 teams right ahead of you, Suns, Kings, Mavericks, they all win, and the Warriors lose. You lose a game to the 3 teams directly ahead of you in the Western Conference standings. Warriors back in action coming up on Saturday when they take on the San Antonio Spurs. Again, Victor Wembanyama likely not going to play. That's per Greg Popovich speaking pregame today in Sacramento. Then the Warriors head out on the road and take on the Spurs again on Monday in San Antonio. So a home and home coming up with the Spurs. But game time on Saturday here at Chase Center, 5:30 tip-off. So if you are heading to the game, make note, weekend special tip-off time, 5:30 tip-off on Saturday. Pre-game coverage begins at 4:30 right here on 95.7 The Game, coming up in a couple of days on Saturday. All right, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. Really quickly, before I do get on out of here, I did want to shout out Draymond Green tonight. We talked about fouling out, untimely moving screen. Triple-double today for Draymond Green. How about that? 11 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. He was very good for the Warriors in this one, a triple-double, but the Warriors still fall short to the Chicago Bulls, 125 to 122. All right, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. For Chris O'Connell, for Sterling Bennett, for all of our callers, for the YouTubers, for the text line. Thanks so much, as always, for participating. Really appreciate all you guys for tuning in to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. My name is Mark Graney, signing off. Thanks so much for sticking with it after the Warriors fall in disappointing fashion, 125-122. And thanks to all of you guys trying to find the silver lining after another disappointing Warriors loss. Again, final score, Bulls 125, Warriors 122. We'll talk to you next time on 95.7 The Game.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals,